Whoa, Dad, go, Dad.
That's right. Welcome to Whoa Dad, Go Dad. My name's Dave Momper. I'm your host. This is a fatherhood podcast for new dads and soon-to-be dads. I'm a new dad myself, and I'm asking every day, great dads, what does it take? What does it truly take to take on the ultimate role? All right, let's get to it. Chuck Dizzle, Charles Lim, the man himself. Welcome to Whoa Dad, Go Dad.
Happy to be here, Dave. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolute pleasure. Two fresh dads in the making right here. You're right out of the gate. You're approaching 3 months. You're 2.5 months in.
2.5 months in, yeah.
Yeah, see, we were talking in months, not weeks, not days. So that's how new I am to this
Early
still.
days. Early days.
And yeah, what a treat to be a dad. You know what we have in common as dads?
What's up?
We're both dads in our 40s.
That's true. How
First
old were
time
you?
dads.
How old were you last year?
The same age as I am now, 43 years old.
Yeah, I was 45.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does that feel like to be a dad in your fourth decade? Actually, you're technically in your fifth decade,
Yeah. No, I mean, thanks
halfway
for
through.
bringing that up. I mean, I waited. I waited forever. I actually ran away from it most of my entire life, right? This idea of commitment, permanence, um, they all seem like things that were meant to entrap me, you know? I always wanted to do one thing, and then, but I was always on the move to the next thing. That's what I thought growing up was about. That's what I thought progress was about. That's what I thought, I don't know, just being on this constant road of just like continuing to grow and to see different things and to experience different things. And yeah, I just felt like commitment was for later, you know? And
So well put. Commitment
and
is for later.
it's for later. And I would see some people committing to people and things so early in their lives. And I'm like, how do you even know? Um, but also I think I had to get just more comfortable with myself. Like, I think when I was younger, I'm like, all right, like I could fuck up and I could be the recipient of all the bad consequences of my fuck ups. If certain things go wrong, I'll go to jail, whatever, all that.
Yeah, I get it. You're the
But
solo recipient of
I'm the
the
solo
consequence.
recipient of my fuck ups, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But now when you have, and even if it's like a girlfriend or a friend, they're adults, so like they know what they're getting themselves into. But when you're dealing with a kid who has no choice of their own to come into the world, like I didn't want to see that person be the recipient of my unpreparedness,
Yeah.
my my inabilities, my shame, my all that, right? I wasn't ready to do that. Um and some would say that like I'm still not ready for that. But at a certain time, I'm like, it's go time. I mean, we got to do this, and I don't regret it in any way for sure. But it does. I've had to confront the way that I've lived my life and the person that I think that I am, and it's been a journey, man. It's been a journey. And I know one day I'm gonna be that old guy at the high school graduation, right? You always think about that. And I know that I would probably give up all of my days of fooling around and exploring for just like one more day with my kid. I know that day is coming for me, but that's the choice that I made, and I have to be comfortable with it. But yeah, I'm gonna be that old guy in the high school graduation. I'm like, oh, congrats, son. But
Well, nobody watching would dare to guess you're actually 45, by the way. They, you know, So you got that going for you. You're going to be 60 something, but you're only going to look 30, 40 something.
I mean, at least I have that. At least I have with
I
giant
th
tumors like growing on my
oh
wrist.
no.
That, that got a little dark. I
Uh,
got
well, this is how it has unfurled for us both.
yeah,
And in a way, it's fun to, or it's interesting to ask you, um, you know, how your timing worked out this way. And at the same time, it just is. It just is. It just is. And I wonder if the word confronting was on the tip of my tongue as you were describing all that. And then you eventually said confronting, or you
yeah,
were confronted by it. But I wonder if someone who's in their 20s who adamantly wants to be a dad and is like, bring it on,
sure.
still feels that it's a confronting situation. Be because of the reasons you said, partly like bringing this new life force into the world and then
Yep,
being responsible and having the duties and the pressures and the
yep,
and yes, there's a lot of beauty in the mix as well, like all the opportunities and the joy and the revelations. But holy crap,
yep.
it's confronting. It does, especially at 45 when you finally realize some at some point leading up to 45. I know Charles Lim has realized that even before having a kid, like the amount of things you don't know is ridiculous.
Yep,
Like you don't have it all figured out.
yep.
And I'm saying this because I know that's your ethos in a way. We have um, an appreciation for that philosophical take on things. Like I know a decent amount about a sliver of what there is to know,
A sliver of a sliver.
a
Right.
sliver of a sliver, right? And that might that's a quick hit on how we became connected for those listening. Charles and I met at a uh, kind of like a community event here in the Denver area put on by Archipelago.
Archipelago,
Is that
correct.
what it's called? And then it was a men's group, but it was just kind of this conversation. I don't remember the topic, but you had a lot of great contributions and opinions, and I was like, I gotta get to know this guy a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we ended up co-hosting. That was the nature of that. Like someone new would host it,
Yep.
take the
That's
lead on the
right.
topic.
Wow. Pre-COVID times, man.
Yeah, pre-COVID. And so we got to co-host that thing together and do what we're doing now, which is just ask questions and maybe suggest some thoughts and ideas on them um, and facilitate a dialogue around, in this case, fatherhood today.
See, and that's one insight that I really gained. I always thought I'm gonna wait until I'm ready to be a dad, right? And that seems like a pretty logical statement, right? But one thing that I learned is certain things you become them by being it or by doing it, right? There's no possible way you could possibly be prepared to be a dad before being a dad. And
Yeah.
you also learn that nature has some built-in systems to enable you to do the things that you need repetitively, in the middle of the night or whatever. And you can kind of feel this cosmic force being like, all right, you're becoming more of a dad through these actions, right? Let's say the army, for example, like they just do all these weird things to you over and over and over again, and you become a soldier. And I feel like I'm becoming a dad through just doing things over and over and over again. I'm building these muscles, and in the process, I'm becoming a dad rather than becoming a dad before I'm a dad. If that
No,
makes
yeah. Dude, you had before being a dad, you had say a sufficient amount of confidence and competence as a human to pull it off, but you weren't ready to be a dad until after you became a dad. Like the experience itself equips you to be a
yeah, you
great
realize
in the role.
there's a like process that has been passed along through the generations where just having a kid makes you a dad.
It
And
pulls you
I thought that
into,
was
yeah,
really
it pulls you into the role.
it
And
does.
And you realize, I don't know, we're both early in the game, but I think it's so part of this is experiential perspective, part of it's just my philosophy, but I feel like it pulls you in to uh yeah, we said confronting earlier, but like pulls you into the role and shows you that you've got what it takes.
Yeah.
You've got what it takes. Um, you got to lean on that innate knowingness, that intuition a little bit. And I think I sent this to you in a text, or maybe I sent it to someone else. I was just like, I'm kind of just winging it.
Yeah.
I am trusting my intuition. Uh, I'm not trying to get too caught up in like the perfect way of doing something as
Yeah.
though there is one. I didn't go through dad boot camp, training camp. There was no process that I formally went through to prepare me for fatherhood
Yeah.
besides life.
Yeah.
And now, um, I've tried to turn those things up, but and now here I am, um, learning to become a dad, on the fly. But I liken it to like, imagine if you're a director in an organization, right? You're pretty high up in the
Yeah.
hierarchy and responsibilities, and you're overseeing some major endeavors. And someday, one of the board members walks in and are like, "Hey, we're tasking you for CEO
Yeah.
or just a bigger role." You're like,
Yeah.
"I'm not ready for that."
Exactly.
Well, you're not ready for it, but you are capable of it.
Yeah.
That's why we're putting you in this role.
Yeah.
And you're going to figure it out. You're not on your own. You've got a community of people in this company, and we've got a community of people, family, friends, fellow dads.
But yeah, I think it's interesting because as you've been doing this podcast, you've been talking, I was telling you this in my text the other day. You're hearing the thoughts and intentionalities of all of these fathers. Some are less intentional, some are extremely intentional, and it must engender something in you where you leave the conversation, you're like, man, I didn't even think about that. Like, I gotta add that as something that I gotta bring to the table as a parent. And I could imagine those things kind of building up. In some ways, I didn't want to listen to more of your podcast because I didn't want to be like, oh, like I better be as insightful as that guy. I better be as prepared as that guy. Some of them, there's like, I have a list of all of these ways I'm gonna make my kid the best. And on top of that, we're listening to so many podcasts and watching so many YouTube videos nowadays, and everyone's being like, let me tell you about my past. And when everyone talks about their past, they're talking about their parents, right? They're like, oh, my dad was an alcoholic, and that's why I'm all fucked up. And I listen to that, and I'm like, oh, interesting. I've learned more about this guy. And before I was a dad, I just thought that they were funny. I'm like, oh, look at this fuck up dad who fucked him up. But luckily, this guy survived, and now he's this famous person or whatever. But now as I'm a dad, I'm like, well, I don't want to be that dad. I don't want my kid to be talking about me in that way. It's like, oh man, like my dad was just really bad with this. And I'm like, well, how can I make sure that I'm not bad at those things? And so, yeah, you're talking about how do we do this thing authentically without feeling some sort of daily shame of just like, am I doing enough? Am I being a responsible man leading another man into this world that is more uncertain than ever? It could be heavy, and I really appreciate some people that are just like, bro, just trust your instincts. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like what instincts do you think that I have? So in some ways, yeah, I want to feel loose and that I'm being the best dad I can be. But so many things that are telling you that you're not doing enough, and you can get a little overwhelmed by that.
Hmm. That is fair, 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 fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear a lot of great stuff, and I would, for anyone listening, and the intention behind this, like, I don't know what the perfect way to dad is, and nor do I subscribe to some theory that there is a perfect way. the perfect way, I feel like I heard this on a previous conversation. It's like you've got one right now. I've got one right now. You have a second kiddo, and there's a chance the way that you dad for that person is
Totally,
different, right?
totally. Yeah,
So perhaps the perfect way to dad is to be like water,
yeah,
right? So I like this fluid, go with the flow approach a bit, but I also wanted, gosh, I wanted to just hear about all the possible ingredients. Like we get to create our own recipe in a
yeah,
way.
yeah,
It's like, well, some you don't have to map out like uh, a values mission, vision, values statement in
yeah,
your family and frame it,
yeah,
right? You don't even have to write it. You can just feel it and sense it. But some people, and I'm thinking of a friend of mine who was on the podcast, he sat down and declared out loud in words on paper and then formulated like this the family crest,
yes,
right? And you're like, well, shit, if that's calling to you, if that's going to support you in getting convicted about the role,
yeah,
go for it.
yeah,
It might already be um, in your heart, you're like, no, I just know fundamentally as a dad, I need to, and help me with this. What are the, at a minimum, what are we committed to doing when we take on the role of being a dad? It's like protect, uh, fuel,
yeah.
and I
I'm in
guess
I'm in the
mom,
protect and fuel stage right now. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, right. And let's admit, like right now, my wife is the one doing the fueling,
yeah,
but I need to support the effort of fueling.
yes.
I need to protect, if not support, the effort of protection. What are, what else is there, right? And maybe,
Expose, expose,
oh,
right?
okay.
Like
Meaning like
I want him
expose.
to see and
Okay.
experience as many things as possible,
Yep.
and then have him choose what is going to light him up. But he can't be exposed to certain things, at least right now, unless I put him in a position to expose him to those things.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
really
Cool. So like, show him the world right now.
some of the
Cool.
exactly.
And then maybe love is in protection, but I feel like love could be the separate thing. Like pretty basics,
Yeah,
pretty basic. Those are the basics. And
yeah.
um,
But big
maybe
things,
there's, what's that?
basic things can be big. Those are
Those are
huge,
massive,
massive
right?
things.
But if we do those things at least, then like cool, fatherhood check, right? But then there beyond that, there's like all these different ways you can potentially father, and you
Exactly.
could, I definitely acknowledge there's people out there who are, you know, even their career intensity is different, or how their lifestyle is completely different. So they're just raising their kids differently. There's no one way to do it.
Exactly.
But you're
And
right. I hear all these different perspectives, and I'm like, am I doing it right?
yeah,
As though there's a right way. It's like, oh, well, that's an interesting way to do it.
yeah,
But like many of my guests, like I couldn't do it that way. I don't have that life experience to, recently I had a former, or once a Marine, always a Marine, but a survivalist on named Donnie Dust. It's like, I want to raise my kid to be adventurous and in the outdoors, but I'm not going to do it like Donnie Dust did because the
yeah,
guy's like a 12 on
exactly.
the intensity level there. But I
Yeah,
love that. I kind
yeah,
of I kind of envy his knack for like, survival. On the other hand, I interviewed a buddy of mine who's in Washington D.C., living a very cityfied life, and how they take their kids to school and manage daycare and handoffs between parents. Like, that's just not. I don't live in that environment or in that dynamic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some people are just more comfortable with uncertainty and some people are not, right? If you're just like, hey, you could be whatever father you want, dude. Some people like that.
Hmm.
Whereas other people are just like, as long as you check off A, B, C, D, E, then you are a good father. Some people need a system like that sometimes. And kind of knowing which one you are, I think is really important because some people like when they're given like infinite possibilities of what can happen, not everyone is comfortable doing that. They need some guidance, some sense that I'm doing this right, um, because it's according to at least some advice that someone created. Some people need that,
Yeah.
yeah, that
So
stability.
do you feel like you need that structure in the early days so far, or are you more of the go with the flow, kind of
Yeah,
wing it every day?
yeah.
Which one is it?
I think going back to what we were talking about before, I think in the early days, it's just like he's crying, find the source of crying, and help him not cry anymore. So
Okay.
it's very much checklist, right? Did he poop? Is he gassy? Did he eat? Does he need a bath? Is he overtired? And I think the process has made it quite simple in that way.
Yeah.
Outside of some health issues that your kid might have, God forbid, or whatever, and so I'm only saying that because there's not room to think about the heavens and the potential infinite possibilities of this kid's future at the beginning. Right now, it's just like, let's get another diaper on this guy because he's just laying in his own feces. Let's just do that. And so I think at the beginning, the system has enabled us to just be like, okay, I did this. I was a good father today. So in
Yeah.
some ways it feels good. But once he starts moving, once he starts expressing himself, once he starts wanting things, that's gonna be a new level in the video game. Like right now, I'm like in level 1, 2, learning how to jump, learning how to run, all these things. And then now I'm like, okay, now that I have those skills, I gotta apply those skills and do it differently. And then acquire new skills as I'm going through that level. So in many ways, I'm seeing this kind of as like a video game
Hmm.
because video games are kind of based on how we learn anyway. So I'm in the very much like learning the new skills and then hopefully applying them correctly.
So, yes, in the sense that life is like a video game too, but I mean, fatherhood is like a video game. It's iterative. And I almost, like I just had, what is today? Wednesday. So Father's Day was Sunday.
Yes.
Happy belated Father's Day, Charles.
To you too, my friend. To you too, my
So first Father's Day, and it's like even me posting about Father's Day on Instagram, I kind of felt like people are going, "You're not a father. I mean, yeah, you're a father, but get out of here, man. We've been around the block, you know,
yeah,
20 laps. Like, what are you doing? You're not
yeah,
a, yeah, you're a father, whatever. It's cute. This is your first Father's Day. Super cute. Like,
yeah,
really nice of you. But I'm like, oh, I'm in like the noob stage of fatherhood.
yeah,
That's cool. That's
yeah,
cool. What's that calling on out of me? What's that calling out of me?
yeah,
And what is that demanding of me? What does that really mean for me?
yeah.
Rather than just the concept of it, it's like, what does that really mean for me? And you're right. It's those four things we came up with, right? Like protect, fuel, uh, what was the third one?
We're talking about
Create experiences and love.
yeah,
Yeah. So it's like, am I doing those? Cool. I'm at least I'm meeting the mark of sufficient dad.
yeah.
Sufficient
And
dad.
I would say I'm not even like loving this kid right now because I'm loving him through protecting and all this stuff. Like the actual like providing what I would consider love. I don't even know if that's registering for him at the moment.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure he feels it, but for him to remember it and for it to be, although, gosh, that's such an interesting thing because supposedly we don't have memories until we're in our fourth year as a little kiddo,
Yeah.
and I've seen some playful memes that say, the first year, second year, third year, maybe the fourth year are really just for us as parents because kiddos aren't going to remember it. So like cherish those one-sided memories.
Yeah.
But I feel like they still, even if they can't remember the love, the sensation of love, it's going to impact them, the love we give them today. I would
Well,
hope, I would think.
yeah, let me correct myself. I think the baby being, let's say it's kind of like an AI, right? Like it is an AI, right? And I think when the baby starts crying because they're hungry or whatever, I think it's kind of timing you. They're like, how fast is someone gonna come pick me up, feed me, uh, give me a boob to suck on? And I think if we're a little bit slow, or obviously the parent never comes or comes rarely, I
Yep.
think something is registering in him, and it's like, oh, the world is a little tougher than um than it might be for others. And I'm gonna have to have some personality traits in the future to make me a little bit more resilient, because what's happening right now is I'm learning that if I have some needs that I might not get them right away,
Mm,
or I'm gonna have to wait. And so I think that's getting registered a little bit. It's like, okay, I waited 12 minutes for you to come as opposed to 1 minute or whatever. I think it's learning in that way. And maybe I could perceive that as love, attention,
mm.
uh, providing. Yeah.
I'm just picturing this little baby holding the stopwatch, just like,
Yeah.
you're 3 minutes late.
Yeah.
Change this diaper.
Yeah.
Well, tell me your experience as what was your mindset before you guys actually knew you were having a kiddo?
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about how you've alluded to it. You were it wasn't front and center. It wasn't like this crazy urge, but perhaps there was a little bit of a TikTok like I'd like to be a dad, I think, and one day I'll be an old dad with next to Dave on the old soccer field, just
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
rubbing arbors. Okay, so there's that. Tell me a little bit more about that, so that then I have context for what was your mindset like once you all knew you were having that kiddo,
Sure. Sure.
and then I have a third follow up. But
Um, me and my wife have been together for 13 years now, total. She didn't get pregnant until last year, so we were together for 12 years before that. And that's something that I really cherish, right? Because we know each other on a deep level that not everyone gets to have with their spouse, right? Sometimes you've been married or been in a relationship with your spouse for a couple of years, and then you have your first child, right? For you too.
yeah,
Um, but I think because, me and Tanya, we did a long distance relationship between London and New York City for like 4 years. She moved to New York City and we lived there for 3 years, and she didn't really particularly enjoy New York City. And it was actually her desire to leave New York City and come somewhere new. And so we came to Denver to kind of start a new life. And I really, I'm the kind of person that can like endure, right? Like you put me in any situation, I could figure it out and endure and do what needs to be done. But my wife, she's really good at being like, I don't like being here, or I don't like this. And so it's a different ethos of I'm the endure guy, and she's like, I want to do things that I like person. And if I was really being honest with myself, I would have continued probably living in New York City. I would have continued being childless unless some force kind of forced my hand. And in some ways, really, like Tanya turned 35 and she's like, I told myself I'm gonna have a kid at 35. Let's have a kid. And it's not like we haven't talked about it before. We've talked about it before too. But she has a certain decisiveness that I really envy. She's like, this is not working for me. I want to go in this other direction. And she just starts walking, figuratively, just starts walking in this new direction.
yeah,
And sometimes I'm like a person that's filled with doubt, right? Just like, is this the right decision? Should we have done that? But going back to what we were talking about before, sometimes the situation makes you the person as opposed to just kind of being that person and moving forward. So I really credit her for starting the real conversation of like, let's start a family. And yeah, so I was really kind of writing her energy. Not to say I didn't want to. It's not like she dragged me kicking and screaming, but I'm really grateful that the decision happened that way. And Yeah, it happened last year, and it coincided with us, like, buying a house and having a more stable place for us to raise a family. So, at a certain point, we're like, I ran out of excuses, right? You're just like, I can't just keep putting this off. Um, so I know that's probably not the most romantic story in the world, but that's real, man. That's real.
No doubt. That's what we want. We want to hear the raw Chuck Dizzle.
Yeah.
I mean that's poetic. I love, the yin and the yang between the two of you. And I can just see her leaving New York. She's like, I'm going to Denver right now. We're like, you better,
You want to come too? I
you're
mean,
coming. Like, hurry up. Yeah,
yeah,
we're headed to Denver. She's just like walking off into the
yeah,
sunset to the west.
yeah,
All right, so that's pre-game.
yeah,
Then you find out you're going to be a dad.
yeah.
How did that go? How did you find out? And did your mindset change? What about your approach to life changed when you knew, oh, this is happening, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit before the call, but yeah, sometimes I expect too highly that certain external situations are just kind of gonna hit me in a certain way. And maybe I'm just incapable of maybe feeling really, really deep emotions. But I thought as soon as, let's say we got uh the pregnancy test back, that I would have some sort of like holy shit moment. I mean, it was like it was a wow moment, but it wasn't like a holy shit moment. But the way we found out was, we were going on a trip to the West Coast. We went to um, Oakland. We were in Seattle, and then we were going to end it by going to a wedding in Lake Tahoe. And so it was a fun plan for last summer, and we had no idea that she was pregnant. I mean, we tried, but we knew that it was going to take some time, right? And so we go on this trip. We have a great time, and then in the middle of the trip, she finds out, because we were going to go to wine country, and she just finds out that she's pregnant. And so we're like, okay, well, we just obviously can't have you drink wine anymore. Um, and but we continued on with the trip, and then an hour before the wedding in Lake Tahoe, she found out that she was bleeding a little bit. And we're like, oh, like maybe she miscarried. And, because we just started the process, we didn't have this kind of like deep sense of loss. Like, I can imagine if you've been trying for a couple years and you have a miscarriage like that, you might feel a certain tremendous sense of loss, right? But we were like, okay, well, we'll just get back on the saddle. And then she started drinking, and then, she started having a really good time at the party. And that was that. But we come back, and she has another test, and it's positive. And then we go to the hospital, and it's still positive. And we're like, okay, so this is happening. And so I guess to answer your question, it was like a whoa dad moment, you know? Um, but at the same time, you knew that obviously this parenting thing wasn't gonna, maybe there's a reason why it's 9 months. So you could have like 9 months to like think about this new reality starting. So in some ways, I'm like, okay. And because I'm not the one carrying the baby, like a man's life doesn't change that much during pregnancy. Obviously, you want to be as supportive as possible, but obviously our women are the ones that are largely doing most of the work. And so not a lot of things change on a daily basis either. But yeah, it took some time to have that new reality kick in. And yeah, and eventually did.
When, like, what was the, oh, damn, this is really happening? Because I had the same sense, you know, we, uh, we anticipated, well, we didn't anticipate getting pregnant, but Mac one day was like, I think I'm pregnant. We confirmed it. And I was, the whole time, I'm like, game on. If we
Yeah,
are, cool, game on. And then she confirmed, I'm like, game on.
yeah,
And she's looking for me to be like, ah, but I'm just like, no, no, game on. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
part of that's where I'm at in my life, age wise, career wise.
yeah.
Like,
Were you surprised at your game on reaction?
no, in fact, No, 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 no. It just seemed like, well, of course, eventually we're going to have a kid. We might as well get going.
Yeah,
Which here we are, right?
yeah.
Now, in our minds, there was probably a little bit of us thinking, well, we just got engaged. We think we're going to get married in the next year or two. It'd be nice to, do it a little bit in a different order. But then again, whatever. This is how it happened.
How along was she in her pregnancy when you guys got married?
So let's see. He was born on 10/1, and we got married June 3rd. So there's, yeah, she
Wow,
was six,
that's good.
5.5, 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, there was, for me, I was just kind of like game on. I think other people find out they're pregnant and they're like, okay, holy crap, right? And that didn't necessarily pan out for either one of us.
Yeah.
But then eventually you guys had the kid.
Yeah.
So touch on how cosmic was that experience for you, or what was the sensation? What was
Yeah.
the, because I think what I'm getting at and what I appreciated what you said as we were warming up on the call is like some people have this epiphany, profound, overwhelming sensation, and others are like, cool, let's keep going.
I mean, you hear about it time and time again in our culture, and maybe it's truly false, but maybe it's really true. But you hear all the time that some guys see like the baby coming out and they're just never the same, right? A bolt of lightning just hits them and it causes them to like totally like re-examine their life, and all of their prior motivations and desires and wants just kind of like really kind of come into like this deep focus. And in some ways I was counting on that. I really wanted to be just so moved. I just wanted like a tornado to take me away to like this new kind of mind space
Mm,
so that I could just kind of dwell in just this feeling that is overcoming me, because I could be a little bit too logical sometimes. I could just be a little bit too measured sometimes. And when you're that way all the time, you want to just be whisked away sometimes. You just want to get carried away a little bit. And that didn't come. That doesn't mean that this thing wasn't just like the most beautiful thing that happened. Like, me and Tanya were at the birth center in Denver. She was in the bathtub. We were playing, you know, some beautiful music. And then at the last moment, the baby came out. They put the baby on Tanya's chest, and I just started sobbing, right? But it wasn't because the bolt of lightning hit me. It just like I was just overwhelmed by her, by everything that she had to do to make this happen. The team of people that were in front of us that were there just to help us get through this situation, and to for that to culminate in this moment of this crying baby that's blood covered. You can't experience that without feeling some awe of like how beautiful that is. But like I said, that wasn't this lightning bolt that I was thinking of, just like this reprioritization of everything in my life, like almost like a near death experience kind of thing, but in the reverse.
hmm.
So yeah, like I said, it was a beautiful occurrence, and like I remember kind of coming around wanting to like see his face, and making sure that everything looked right. And it was a moment that I'll never forget. It was a moment that I'll never forget. um so yeah, man.
Sounds cosmic.
Yeah.
Despite, I think what you're kind of getting at is like there's a moment before you become a parent and being a dad where you sense that perhaps the moment you see your kid for the first time, like you're transported to a new realm.
Yeah.
And similarly, even with a tumultuous start to things, it was definitely an experience for us. But I kind of felt like, oh yeah, this is the natural progression of things for me. I think that's how I interpreted it. I was like, oh yeah, now we have a kid.
But you
Perfect.
were not whisked away either.
I was not. You know, I mean, I'm in
Feel
awe
bad
of
about
him.
not feeling that? Do you feel bad about that?
Um, I empathize with what you're saying. I think, like, I guess I don't feel bad, but I do wonder, I don't know. How are you supposed to feel the first
Yeah,
time you see your kid? You're like, is there only one way? The first time I saw my kid, he was basically lifeless and breathless. So that was a little bit like, no, no. I
yeah,
was, as I told you in our prep calls, like, there's no way this is happening. Everything
yeah,
else has been good. No, this isn't how it ends.
yeah,
So that was definitely surreal and confronting, and but it almost the ability to be emotionally sculpted by like the profound nature of things.
yeah.
It didn't exist in the moment. So I was just, all right, how do we solve this problem? You're he's aspirating, you're breathing for him. We called 911. ER is in the future. Okay, we're in an ambulance. That, you know, I was just like,
I mean, you were in a totally different mind space, right? Because you went into like direct, like problem solving mode. Like there is something that I need to either huddle people together, drive
yes.
him somewhere or whatever. You didn't have time to kind of like be in the
Heavens.
emotions that were like coming to you. Maybe they were there, but like it was reprioritized to these other more pressing things. And so, in a way that you almost have an excuse of just like, if it happened again and it didn't happen that way, maybe I would have felt differently. But I don't have that excuse. I'm just like, I should have been overwhelmed. Should have, right? Like, I should stop using that word, but I should have been overwhelmed, but I wasn't. And I think I felt bad about that for a while. I'm like, am I some cold-hearted bastard? I'm just like, why can't I just feel more here? Like these are
Mm,
the things that like life is all about. And I'm just like, nice.
nice.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I have those moments too. I wonder, any dads listening, if they relate to this. It's like, um I've heard whispers of this or hints of this in different conversations where, of course, because of the mother's experience, you know, basically growing the kiddo and then giving birth to it, that'll transform you. The actual physical transformation, the chemical transformation,
Yeah,
the actual experience itself, that's like, you have no choice but to be transformed. And then for dads, the transformation into this role happens later
yeah,
when in a different dynamic, when you're interacting with your kiddo and they become kind of like, you know, a little bit more conscious and conversative, and
yeah,
they can, you know, there's some physical capabilities, like maybe that's when that happens and you're finally going, oh my God. I think the biggest thing that struck me was actually Mac's experience, like watching her go through pregnancy,
yes.
seeing her. And we were in a birth center as well. Were you out in Lowry? Where were you?
We were at the Intermountain Birth Center of Denver, like
Different
in
than us, but so we were in a similar setting, and just to watch her
epidural
intensity,
kind of thing, like laughing gas kind of thing.
no epidural, no, all natural, right? In a bathtub, music going, very, you know, very primal noises coming out of her
Yeah,
as she was enduring the journey, and beautiful, and felt supported and all that good stuff too. But I remember feeling like, wow, I just watched my wife become a mother. That was what really struck me.
yeah.
Like the kiddo, it's kind of funny. You're like, oh yeah, nice. We got a kiddo. Great.
Yeah,
Cool.
I mean, the sense of awe around my wife was intense, and in some ways, I'm just like, I mean, I know I love my wife to the core, and I had this thought. I'm just like, I can't fathom loving my kid more than my wife. My
Mm,
wife is like the bee's knees, but my kid, I'm like, when is that going to happen, and how is that going to happen? That's the interesting stuff.
no doubt. And I guarantee I'm going to speak for you here. Of course, you love your kiddo already to some
Yeah,
degree, but like that it's, you know, spilling over the brim, and it's like you're seeing, tasting colors when you look at them or something. Like, no,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that's not. I wonder. I can't wait to, we'll talk, of course, after this, but over the years, interview you again. It's like, what is, what changes will lead to that? I suspect this when he starts talking to me, my kid, I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I loved you, yes. But now that I can hear your squeaky little voice and you're looking me in the eye and saying I love you and
Yeah,
giving me a kiss back,
yeah.
like
And
that's gonna
I think
maybe
that's
that's
gonna be it. Like I remember I went to Seattle on that trip that I was telling you about, and I spent some time with my niece, and she was about 4 years old at the time, and she's super cute. And we went to the beach, and she at a moment, like there was a moment where we're both in the water together, and she was just like splashing water on my face, and I would just kind of she was laughing her butt off, and she kind of looks like me in a certain way, and that this like cosmic moment that I was telling you about that I didn't feel, I felt it in that moment, and I'm like this like deep sense of like joy, like gratitude, presence, supernaturalness in that moment happened. And I know I'll have that moment with Colleen as well. Just hasn't happened yet. But there are times where like he looks at me and he just like smiles, and I'm like, all right, man, you ticked up a quarter of a point.
I I've had those little moments too. Leo looks over at me and it's got a little. Actually, maybe the best ones are when he's not smiling necessarily. He looks over and lights up because there you are. You're like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
Well, I just spent Father's Day with my brother. He's got 4 kids, and my dad and my mom, and um, my brother's oldest is 8 years old, and I came across a picture of me holding him as a little redheaded little nugget. I'm like, and then I got to see him again, and I was just looking at him like, Colton, do you have any idea how much I love you, buddy? You were the first. I'm an uncle now, right? I'm Uncle Dave, and I have the 4 of you guys are my nephews and a niece. I'm like, but you were my first nephew. You know what I mean? So the love I have for him has definitely brewed up and grown, and uh, I anticipate the same, right?
yeah, yeah.
How, what's it been like being the partner to Tanya? I mean, describe that role for me, because oftentimes, fatherhood has a certain there's a certain image that comes to mind as a father holding a kid or something, but it's like, no, being a great father in these early days, especially, often means taking care of or supporting, and so your partner,
Yep.
Tanya. So what has been particular about that? What's been hard about that
Yeah.
or interesting about that?
I think in the early days of being a father, you're constantly in like problem solving mode. Your wife is largely in bed. She needs to recuperate. So the needs of your dogs and your cats and Tanya and obviously your baby just kind of like can overwhelm you. And at the beginning, you're like, I got this. What you need? You need me to go there? Okay, I'll be right back. And you do all of that stuff. And but we all have a limit, you know, because after a while, like maybe you stop taking care of yourself because all these other beings need you. And so you just kind of put yourself to the side. And obviously, you don't want to complain about any of this. Like your wife just went through a birth, and like, what right do you have to like complain about how hard your job is? So you keep your mouth shut. Um,
That's so funny.
and like, and but we all have a breaking point, and it's really interesting because I've broken a couple of times where I'm just like, I need to get out of here. And when I break, I get angry. It's weird. I have this like resentment that kind of builds up. Whereas my wife, when she breaks, she gets sad. And but it's weird because when she gets sad, I could just be like, "Oh, you need comfort? Here it is." And I can do all the comforting that she needs for her to like get back right. But when I'm like overwhelmed, like I said, I get angry, And there's no level of comforting when I'm in that state. I just need space. I just need time. I just need to kind of get away. So it's just been an interesting look into how we react to stress and maybe even how men are conditioned to react to stress. Like, hey, don't complain. Just get up the next day, keep it moving kind of thing. And that could be a little toxic, of course, right? Like, because we're human too, and we can't just do everything. We don't have this like endless supply of enthusiasm and passion and love and all that. Like we can reach the end of that road. So all I'm saying is at the beginning, you're gonna want to be super dead. And 98% of the time, you're probably killing it. I was killing it too some days. I'm just like, oh, I'm killing this dad thing. And other days I'm like, I'm not doing anything right.
Yeah.
And then you see, how do you judge yourself? You know, when that shame comes of like, I'm not doing enough, I'm not being enough, are you kind to yourself? You know, have you conditioned yourself to be kind and gracious in those moments? And it really reveals sometimes, at least it revealed for me, that I can kind of be an asshole to myself, you know, and make the feeling even worse. So I've had to learn how to be like, how do I talk to myself like I would talk to you, Dave, if you came to me with a problem and be like, Dave, look at it this way, blah, blah, blah. I realize I don't do that enough for myself, and I've had to learn how to do that better.
I can't picture Mean Charles. I just can't. I just you're such a good dude. Like, but out of all people we can take advantage of, it's ourselves.
Yeah.
Without retribution.
Yeah.
So I could see that. I'm just picturing as human beings, the voices in our heads, quote unquote, like, the um this topic has come up beforehand, just being the observer in our mind
Yes.
of life, and
Yes.
not necessarily, and there's the observer and then there's subject, and how do you make sense of what you're hearing in your head when you're thinking, like, is that me,
Yeah.
or is that me talking, or am
Yeah.
I, who's doing the listening, like all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, shit, as a father, those voices and that conversation is it's like doubled, tripled, quadrupled, I suspect, right? It's like now you're constantly assessing everything, including those confronting moments that we alluded to early on. Like, am I spending my time wisely?
Yeah.
Like, I got a kid somewhere in this house as a child, and am I working hard? Okay, I have some time down. I'm scrolling Instagram. I shouldn't be doing this. What the
Totally.
heck? Oh my God. What a fool. Like, I should be I should be I don't know. I should be going to the gym. I should be going for a walk. I should be, I don't know. The I shoulds are everywhere. And there are you shoulds and I shoulds all coming from in here. It's really interesting to play with. So your counsel to me would be, talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend, it sounds like. So what other counsel in this clear state of mind that you're in currently, would you give yourself and other new dads who are just like trying to sort it out?
I mean, one thing I learned about a baby is that you learn about the nature of emotion, right? He's hungry, agitated, and he's crying until he gets the boob or the bottle, right? And you can be mesmerized about how quickly an emotion can go away, right? He's like losing his crap, gets a boob, and he's like, yeah, man, and just like changes. And I think that's true for us too, in that we should be we should let go of our emotions when we get our needs met. But so often we can be so tied to our emotions because of certain narratives that we have tied to those emotions. And it could make emotions last way longer than it needs to. Um, and it doesn't serve us anymore. Emotions are there to make us spring into action, right? And once the action is taken care of, that emotion is no longer necessary.
Mm.
But if we really look at ourselves, we can really hold on to these negative emotions in particular that don't really serve us anymore and haven't served us in a long time. But we're holding on to whether it's resentment toward our parents, resentment toward our family, toward our friends, or whatever. Sometimes we're just lugging around all of these emotions that aren't serving us in any way. And so I don't know if this is advice, but to just, yeah, not hold on to negative emotions that are not serving us on a daily basis just opens you up for all the good emotions that the current situation, the current baby looking at you is allowing you to feel. Sometimes you need to get rid of emotions to make room for new ones.
That's the truth. Two reflections on that. One is you said it, but it's like emotions are information.
Yeah,
That's all. And if we don't, if you get caught up in them, they become more than just information, and you can get bogged down by them. But emotions should be data.
exactly.
And what you do with it, if you're claiming agency over yourself,
Yeah,
and I guess we're talking about this as humans, but also as dads, is like recognize whatever emotion. Like some people are sad. You're saying sometimes you're pissed, you're angry, you're like, screw this. And so it's one, treat emotions like data, and then two, um, how did you say it? It was so nice. It was like,
well, like
uh,
making room for emotions or
I'm hearing my dog go nuts upstairs. It just distracted me, and I'm also tapping in. So let me just see if I can catch this again. It's
yep.
like emotions as data, and what was it? Dang it. It was so good,
Well,
Charles.
good. I mean, some people can make their emotions their personality, and yeah, that doesn't serve us, you know? Yeah, it is just data and emotions or data and information.
Data and information. Oh, um, there it was, and there it went. Okay.
We can come back around to it. We can come back
Yeah, we'll
around to
come
it.
back around to it. So, what has, touching on the role a little bit further with you being of service to Tanya, what does that look like, right? Like, I appreciate you recognizing when you need to check out and the emotional experience of it, but what has it actually been like to be the best partner to Tanya and, get her through probably, I'm speaking for Mac, I suppose, but one of the most challenging experiences of her life.
Yeah, one thing I'm really grateful for is that for the entirety of Colleen's life, he has had two parents 24/7 looking after him, right? So, Tanya's going to go back to work in a few weeks, but for the last 2.5 months, like it's tag team time. Like it's mom and dad doing this together. And
Hmm.
there's extreme benefits of that, of course, because you hear so many times that like sometimes when dads go to work early, or let's say mom goes to back to work a little early, then it leaves the person taking care of the child largely acquiring the skills of parenting, right? They learn how to put on the diaper correctly. They know the exact temperature in which to warm the bottle. They're gathering all these skills. And so sometimes when the partner comes back after a long day's work and be like, hey, you need me to do something? You need me to help out? And then you're like, okay, you could change the diaper. And then let's say you've never done the diaper before and you're kind of fumbling on it. It's very easy for the wife or the husband who is largely taking care of the baby to be like, let me do that. You're doing that wrong or whatever. It's just um, like why can't you do it better? And sometimes fights can happen because one person is just has gained more skills in parenting than the other, and there's this kind of delta. But largely I'm grateful that the parenting skills that Tanya has and the parenting skills that I have were largely equal currently. But one of the things I would say, at least right now, like during the middle of the night, obviously you need to feed every 2 or 3 hours. So largely when the baby's crying, Tanya is breastfeeding. But I get up super early. I've always gotten up super early. And so I usually get up around like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I take that baby downstairs. I put a bottle in his mouth. I do some meditation or whatever. And then that way Tanya could have like 3 or 4 more hours of just like uninterrupted and unanticipated sleep. And then she can come back down to, start her day. But that's kind of how we start the day. But largely, like I said, we do kind of everything together. And we're already kind of taking him out to the mountains already. We've had some people come and, take care of him while, we get to, do things. I always said, like, if you are a friend to a person that just had a kid, the greatest thing that you can do for them in the early days is just come over to our house. We will cook for you, we will clean for you, and we will hold your baby while you get to eat and just talk about adult things. That is the greatest gift you can give newborn parents at the beginning.
No doubt about it. Help them fuel themselves with food.
Yeah,
Help them, you know, tap into some version of their former selves where they just could just be, just sit,
totally.
or go do something. And but back, so that's what friends can do. That's clutch, actually. I feel like it takes a village. It's like, yeah, raising the kid for sure, but tend give me some attention as a fellow parent now. Just like, let me know you got my back. That
Yeah,
means a lot. So we had a couple really notable friends step up and take good care of us. I'm glad you got the same.
yeah,
But from a partner standpoint, though,
yeah,
keeping our partner fueled up,
yeah,
meaning like rested and fed and all that, it's like that's almost the and solving problems.
yeah,
Just getting things out of the way,
yeah,
whatever it is, figurative stuff, literal stuff, clearing the path, simplifying everything. And dude, I feel like that's the good fortune of your you and Tanya's working environment for you to be home. I both Mackenzie and I also are both home, and we've been home with 24/7 with our dude together,
yeah,
unless I've been on a business trip, but I work from home otherwise.
yeah,
And there's something special about just tag teaming every moment potentially, or any given day. Like, I've got this conversation with Charles, she's got him. I'm going to go upstairs, although
yeah,
she has the day off today. But it's like, when you got 2 hours you need, cool, I'll take him.
yeah. I mean, when,
Uh,
like I said, when you've learned how to be parents together and at the same time, it makes things easier, at least at the beginning.
and I wonder what could be a greater gift to our partner, as the father. What could be the best gift to the mother other than uninterrupted sleep?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
truly probably one of the most uh, the biggest game changers.
But
Is your
man, and in terms of another piece of advice for like new dads, work out your lower back. I work out a lot, but you, especially, let's just talk about like getting a car seat in and out of the house, in and out of the car. Like you're largely bent over, turning things, moving it out. Like it's going to really crank your lower back. And if your back's not ready, or if you've not done exercises on your lower back, you can pull the. I've heard people like grabbing for a juice in the refrigerator and they just like pull their back out because their back has just been stretched beyond recognition. So yeah, work out your lower back
it
is
does take a physical toll. It's amazing how and this goes even for us as fathers to be mindful of with the mothers. Like, Mac is constantly going, I feel out of whack. I'm holding him. I know I'm holding him so he gets to the breast, or I'm holding him on my side over here. This is my strong side, so I'm
yeah,
all off kilter here. Uh,
totally.
So Max definitely spent some time, chiropractor and
Yeah.
massage therapist, whatever, a few times. But same with dudes. I mean, it's like big, hardy guy, Charles Lim, Dave Momper. We can tackle anything, but you are picking up this creature, and he's just getting heavier by the day,
Yeah.
by the way. So I can relate to that. I have a bit of like a compromised back, so I'm very methodical with my movements when I'm doing them, so
Yeah.
as to not surprise myself
Yeah.
every time I pick him up.
And it's not like a baby weighs a tremendous amount, but it's because we have to move in ways we're not used to moving. And we got to stabilize our bodies in ways in which we haven't stabilized our bodies before. So yeah, it could really go out of whack.
Have you tried the car seat, baby in a car seat kettlebell raises?
Mm.
You know, just like in between the legs.
Oh yeah?
It's
Okay.
just like if you're gonna lift the baby, you might as well get a workout in at the same time.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Up to shoulder press,
Yeah.
down. You
But
know,
definitely getting one of those studded balls that like you can put and just like lay on at night. Oh my God, that's and we sound like men in our
we
40s.
sound like 40-year-old dads. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's amazing. So thinking through the first 2.5 months, is there anything that you feel like, oh, I would have done it a little differently?
Yeah.
Either how you prepared for bringing the kid into the homestead, or how you're handling, I don't know, organizing your house, or like what would you do a little bit differently, or what's been a little bit of a ruckus for you?
Yeah, I think, we moved into our house a couple years ago. It was a big fixer-upper and we fixed it up a lot. And there's still things that need to be done to make it more livable. And I just thought maybe I had more time than I did. And I could have taken a lot more time to like tackle a lot of those things to completion before the baby arrived. Because now I'm finding myself like, all right, I got like an hour. I'm just gonna like repair our fence outside and take a couple hours to do that, or repair the air conditioner unit that we have, or whatever. So I definitely had that nesting instinct that everyone talks about. It was like, oh, I got to get things ready. But I think I could have done more to get it to even a better place.
Mm,
Um, but I would say largely, you know, I have a great partner and we do things well, and I have confidence in her and she has confidence in me. So I'm I'm comforted that we have thought things through and are doing it, and that we're doing it to the best of our ability. And of course, there are times where I'm like, "Oh, we're not doing this particularly well," or whatever. But then we don't get down upon it a little bit. We just like, "Okay, let's just do it better next time," or whatever. So, in terms of the actual looking after the baby, no major regrets in that aspect. And I'm also grateful that he's been wonderful. I mean, there are times where he can have like a hissy fit or whatever, but he sleeps pretty well and he's always slept pretty well. And it helps that he's super cute and that just prevents you from just kind of throwing them off a cliff. So, it's good.
you know, there's definitely some folks out there, some parents out there who are like, "You sons of bitches, you don't even know." Because we've got a really chill baby as well. Leonidas is like mostly smiling and easygoing, and a few little things here and there. But you have a colicky baby, doesn't sleep at all for 10 days straight, you will want to throw yourself off a cliff.
I've heard
Um,
I've heard so many times like I'm like, "Hey, why did you have a second kid?" It'd be like, "Well, because the first kid was easy." Like, and then they get their second kid and we're like, "Oh no." It's like a totally different ballgame for them.
yeah, how will you know though? Yeah, you do. We don't want to take it for granted. We feel fortunate. Let's put it that way. You brought up something, or you raised something for me. I realized, like, as dads, as parents, The amount of things we want to do, especially we didn't really touch on this, but you're an industrious, resourceful, very wise human being. You're in a consulting capacity for an accounting organization, helping them expand offerings. I've thought of you as a marketing, storytelling minded guy, building those types of initiatives with different companies. And I learned in our prep call that you were an accountant at one point in your life.
Yeah.
Um, to say that your list of to-dos, must-dos, and like-to-dos is
Yep.
ever gonna, you know, go away is just not realistic. Same with
Sure.
me. Like the amount of things I'm doing this year with my time, my energy, my life, my career, my adventures, all that stuff is literally 5 to 10x what I was doing in my 20s and 30s.
Yep.
Right. So, but now it's like, oh, I need to sneak in. Oh, I have 30 minutes. You can easily let 30 minutes just blow by in life.
Totally.
But now we're in this stage where you're seizing the moment on 30 minutes.
Sure.
Or if you're not yet, it's going to be more and more apparent that time is, fleeting, and savor the moments when you're with them, and also make sure you're using your time productively when you're not. And
Yep.
that could involve rest too, I suppose, or just kind of screwing off if it's on purpose. Like for an hour, I'm just gonna go, play pinball.
Yep.
If you know, whatever.
Yep.
Uh, but it's funny how much especially being in my career where I run my own schedule, and there's days like today, it is also a federal holiday, but today is a pretty light day.
Yep.
And like, what did I do this morning? Well, I spent it with him napping on my chest, so at least that was highly productive in this
Yep.
sense.
Yep.
But it's confronting again, uh, how I'm spending my time. What's truly important, and I'm gonna jump on the fence project for an hour if I need to, if I
Yep.
can. All right, Charles, we've been talking for a while. We could keep going. I know we could keep going, but I just want to hear as like an ultimate capstone to our exchange here. I'm picturing Colin, in his 60s, his 70s, sitting around with the the younger generation of limbs,
Yep.
weaving tales
Sure.
of the great and mighty Charles Limb.
Sure.
You're not in the room, you're not there. Maybe you moved on, maybe you're just, you know, not not in the presence. What are the three things you hope you're known for
Yep.
that are story worthy, passed down to other generations? What will he speak of when he describes you? Three things.
That's the big question, right? I think number one is I want him to feel that he didn't need to like earn my love, right? I don't want him to feel like if he does X, Y, Z, then he will be someone worthy of love and support or whatever. I'm here to guide him and to provide the knowledge and experience that I have. I think too often parents, because they want the best for their kid, can kind of push them in directions that maybe deep down they know their kid shouldn't go because that's the extent of their knowledge base of just like, I know that, finance is the way to go or any other thing, right? And I don't want him to feel that pressure. I want him to just be like, I'm supportive of you discovering life, discovering yourself, being passionate, being stupid, being whatever, without feeling like they're one mistake away from me. In Korean cultures, like so many parents kind of disown their kids when they make a mistake or something like that, right? And I don't want him to feel that. You're not like one mistake away from me disowning you. So I want him to just explore life and to live life on his own terms. I think that's number one. Um, Number two, yeah, I want him to just take, I want to nurture this idea that to just go after what you want and to go where your passions take you. I think for me, growing up, um, there was always, always doubted my own instincts. I'm like, is that a right instinct? Is that really what I should want? Um, I really like this, but that's a little irresponsible. And I was always checking my instincts about everything, and that's not something that really served me. There were certain loves and passions that I kind of closed down because I felt like it wasn't the thing to do or thing that I should be going into. And so I want him to feel like he doesn't need anyone's approval, you know, just live unfettered, passionate, and yeah, and not afraid and going into the world. And I don't know if that's tied to the first thing that I said, but that's a big one for me. And yeah, maybe the third one is like that I adore him and that like I'll always be his like greatest supporter, greatest protector, that he could always come to me. I don't want him to feel like he needs to hide anything from me. I have enough experiences that I could help him out with things, and I don't want him to look at me as like an authority figure. I'm just like, come to me with anything and we'll solve it together. So yeah, just this desire not to have this thing so conditional. I don't want it to be conditional. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I'm hearing some good stuff in there. It's like the first one, they all are intertwined, of course, but unconditional love. My dad he supported me and loved me no matter what. He taught me conviction. That's what I was hearing. I was like, instead of self-doubt, conviction, just conviction and confidence,
Yeah.
which dovetails nicely. I'd asked you what it means to be a legendary father in your own words, and I'll just acknowledge this because I don't want to neglect it. But you had said being a legendary father means exposing my son to the world, building his confidence, and being a consistent and reliable presence in his life.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think in with the confidence thing is I don't want him to be scared of life. I want him to go forth and live it authentically. Um, and but I do know that confidence needs to be built. Every coach knows that someone could have a lot of talent, but you got to build their confidence. And yeah, I want to make sure that yeah, I mean, so many children as a result of a lot of the changes that have happened in the last couple of years, they can be so scared of life, anxious about life, and through no fault of their own, right? Just some of the circumstances of living in our culture today, and I think that's caused them a lot of disservice that they can break out of course. But um, yeah, I want them to go forth confidently in the world.
no doubt. The the nature of the playing field is always going to be challenging and different and have its own characteristics of uncertainty and hardship and adversity. But the one thing we got to give them in order to play any game is
Yeah,
some confidence.
yeah,
Maybe this that was in theory kind of a capstone question to our conversation, but how are you thinking about the world going forward? Both of our boys will grow up over the next 20 years into adults
yeah.
with a unique set of factors and pressures that are different than maybe when you and I grew up in terms of, say, social media and other things. Perhaps you were alluding to some of the challenges in the last maybe, who knows, decades, but I'm just thinking the last 4 years for anybody who was in a coming of age period in their life, like what a weird time to be in high school or middle school
Yep.
or to go to college or to maybe to wrap up high school and go into college or step into the real world. Like, so what do you, what's on your mind? Not that you have the solve,
Yep.
but you're attuned with kind of like, you know what? I'm kind of on the lookout for how that's going to unfold or how that's going to impact. Or what am I going to do? You don't have the answer yet, but you're asking these questions perhaps of like, what am I going to do about social media? What am I going to do about technology? How am I going to equip my son with confidence with that particular factor? So, what concerns you as you look forward into the world?
Yeah, obviously there's so many concerns about the state of the world today, where the world is going, and it's rare to find someone actually optimistic about the future compared to people that are pessimistic about it, right? Um, but one thing that I'll know is, assuming that the world doesn't explode or whatever, um, we still need each other, and we need to be able to um, create and nurture relationships, because that's really where the most important things are. And so, but at the same time, nurturing relationships requires work, requires a certain level of presence and a certain level of skill, right? Like, for example, um, even little things like some people bought things for our registry, you know, or you went to a wedding, or someone bought you a gift. Like, there are certain ways that we need to reciprocate to let the important people in our lives know that they're important to us. And I think the main thing that I'm going to try to equip them with is like, how do you navigate relationships in a variety of different ways, and how do you equip them to navigate them well so that they get the relationships that serve them? And I think everything else will kind of be taken care of. Obviously, I'm not going to know what technology is going to happen in the future. I don't know what AI, like police dogs, are going to be chasing after us in the future. But at the end of the day, there's still going to be people around, and he's going to have to know how to like navigate relationships. So that's what I need to equip him with.
Yeah, well said. That's like that'll make him durable. If you can build great relationships in the future, no matter what the what, as dystopian as we could almost like make it out to be in certain ways. We kind of like extrapolate. Well, it could look that way. It could look that way. Impossible to know how it's exactly going to look. There's certainly going to be some obstacles, some challenges, some pressures, some adversity that appears to be unique to them, probably, but categorically they're timeless, factors that humans are faced with. And
Yeah,
at the root of it all is, can you build endurable relationships that let us then sort out all the rest of the stuff,
yeah,
I suppose.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're not worried about the world ending. That's that's good. Well, Chuck Dizzle, Mr. Charles Lim, thank you for your time today. Thanks for pouring your heart out. And congrats to you and Tanya. And we should get the kiddos together. Have a little, have a little newborn party.
I mean, thanks for inviting me. I hope I met your expectations on how this was gonna go. I know you're very excited to have me on, which was my privilege, and so thank you for that. And yeah, man, yeah, I'm down to get the kids together for sure.
Yeah, new dad perspective, fresh off the block. We've got someone later this week who just sent his twins off to college. So it's a treat to gather stories of fathers, and I'm glad you're here, buddy. We'll see you on the next one.
Cool.
Later.
There you have it. That's been another episode of Whoa Dad Go Dad. If you like what you're hearing, hit the like button, subscribe to the podcast so you get the future ones, and please spread the word and post this episode to your social networks. That's powerful. Perhaps the best thing you can do is share this directly with a new dad or a soon-to-be dad that you know personally. Let them know you're rooting them on. And indeed, drop a comment and be really a part of this dialogue on fatherhood with me. Let me know in the comments a question you want me to ask other dads, or just some feedback. How does this sound to you? What's helpful? What stands out about these conversations? I would appreciate that intel as I grow Whoa Dad Go Dad. I've got many more episodes to come, and I'm so glad you're here. Looking forward to catching you on the next one.
Whoa, Dad, go